Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today we explain Exodus chapter 25 in a clear and simple way, step by step. So, picture this. Moses is up on the mountain, and God is about to hand him the ultimate, incredibly detailed architectural blueprints for building the most sacred space in ancient Israel. Let's dive right into it.
Here is our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the Freewill Offering, move on to the Ark and Cherubim, check out the table of showbread, and look at the golden lampstand. Then, we'll wrap things up with some key simple ideas and practical life lessons.
All right, Section 1, the Freewill Offering.
Now, before we actually start looking at the building materials, I want to quickly anchor us in how we're approaching the text today. We are focusing strictly on the Peshat. If you're not familiar with that term, it basically means we're sticking to the simple, literal meaning of the biblical text. No deep mystical allegories, no Kabbalah, no symbolic rabbit holes today. We're just looking at Exodus chapter 25 as a literal, step-by-step historical account and architectural blueprint. What you read is what you get.
So, the chapter kicks off with a very specific command. God tells Moses to collect an offering from the Israelites. But, and this is a really fascinating detail, there's a condition attached to it. The text literally says to take this offering of every man whose heart maketh him willing, or in more modern terms, from each person whose heart prompts them to give. I absolutely love this. This isn't some forced government tax. The entire foundation of this massive building project rests purely on the willing generosity of the people.
So, what exactly are these willing hearts bringing to the table? Well, the text hands us this incredibly diverse inventory list. We've got precious metals like gold, silver, and bronze. Then there are these really rich textiles like blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, fine linen, and goat hair. They also needed durable materials, like ram skins dyed red, sea cow hides, and acacia wood. And finally, the highly specialized items, olive oil for lighting, spices for anointing oil and incense, and onyx stones and other gems. This brilliant list really helps us visualize the raw elements sitting there in the camp before any actual construction begins. Now you might be wondering, okay, why gather all of this stuff? Well, verse 8 gives us the ultimate why. God explicitly says, "Then have them make a sanctuary for me, and I will dwell among them." That's the whole point right there. All that gold, the colorful yarn, the acacia wood, it's entirely for the literal physical construction of a sanctuary, a holy space. The goal is quite literally so that God's presence can dwell right there, physically in the midst of the Israelite camp. Moving right along to Section 2, the Ark and Cherubim. As we dig into these blueprints, you're going to hear a specific measurement pop up a lot, the cubit. To help you picture the real-world scale of these items, a cubit is an ancient unit of measurement that equals roughly 18 inches, or about half a meter. Just keep that in the back of your mind as we start looking at the actual dimensions. Okay, let's build the Ark's base. God gives some highly specific instructions here. First up, they need to build a chest made out of that acacia wood we saw in the materials list. The dimensions? Exactly 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Next, this wooden chest has to be overlaid with pure gold, both on the inside and the outside, finished off with a gold molding all the way around it. Then, they are instructed to cast 4 solid gold rings and attach them to the 4 lower corners, basically the feet, of the Ark. And finally, they need to craft carrying poles out of acacia wood, overlay those with gold too, and slide them right into those rings. Now, I really want to draw your attention to a super specific permanent instruction about those carrying poles. Verse 15 explicitly states, the poles are to remain in the rings of this Ark, they are not to be removed, no exceptions. Once those gold overlaid poles are inserted into those gold rings, they stay there forever. It really highlights the absolute precision and strict adherence to the rules that this text demands. Next, we move to the top of the Ark, which is known as the atonement cover, or simply the Ark cover. And unlike the chest itself, this cover is not made of wood overlaid with gold. Nope. It has to be crafted from a solid slab of pure gold, measuring exactly 2.5 by 1.5 cubits, so it fits the chest perfectly. And get this, out of that exact same piece of pure gold, 2 cherubim are to be hammered out at the 2 ends. The text describes these cherubim as facing each other, looking downward toward the cover, with their wings spread upward to overshadow it. It's an incredible piece of craftsmanship. So, why this specific setup with the cover and the cherubim? Well, the text gives us the exact, literal function of this space. God states that he will place the testimony, meaning the commandments, inside the Ark. But the empty space above the cover, directly between those 2 golden cherubim, that is the designated meeting place.
God literally says, "There, above the cover between the two cherubim, I will meet with you and give you all my commands for the Israelites."
All right, that brings us to section 3, the table of showbread.
Before we actually build the table, let's take a quick second to compare its literal function to the ark we just discussed, just to keep their distinct purposes straight. So both are made of acacia wood that's overlaid with gold. However, the ark functions primarily as a container for the testimony and as that specific meeting place for divine commands. The table, on the other hand, has a totally different literal purpose. It is designed specifically to hold the showbread, which is also known as the bread of the presence, set out before God at all times.
And the construction details for this table are just as precise. It starts with acacia wood, cut to 2 cubits long, 1 cubit wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Just like the ark, it gets totally overlaid with pure gold and gets a gold molding. But the table features a really unique architectural detail. It has a rim around it that is a handbreadth wide, and that rim also gets its own gold molding. And finally, just like the ark, it needs 4 gold rings attached to its 4 corners near the rim to hold gold overlaid acacia poles so the table can be easily carried.
Now, this table doesn't just sit there empty. The text lists out pure gold accessories that have to accompany it. It specifically calls out plates, dishes, pitchers, and bowls. And these aren't just for decoration. The text notes they are specifically designed for the pouring out of offerings. And yep, you guessed it. Every single one of these utensils must be crafted from pure gold.
Let's move on to section 4, the golden lampstand.
Next up, the text paints a super vivid literal picture of a highly intricate botanical design for the lampstand. Now, this isn't made of wood at all. The entire thing is to be hammered out of pure, solid gold. It features a central shaft with 6 branches extending from its sides, 3 on the left, 3 on the right. And the details are absolutely stunning. It includes cups shaped specifically like almond flowers, complete with buds and blossoms. But here is the absolute most challenging requirement for whoever is crafting this. The base, the shaft, the branches, the buds, and the blossoms must all be hammered out and formed from one single continuous block of pure gold. No welding, no assembling parts, just one piece. And here's a brilliant little detail that really illustrates the scale of the light this thing gives off. Exactly 7 lamps are to be made and set up on this intricate stand, all positioned so that they perfectly light the space directly in front of it.
This all builds to a pretty striking detail regarding its weight and value. The text specifies that exactly 1 talent of pure gold is to be used to make the entire lampstand, along with all its accessories, like its wick trimmers and trays. Now, if you don't know, a talent was a massive unit of weight in the ancient world. We're talking roughly 75 pounds of solid gold. That really emphasizes the immense physical value of this single item.
Which brings us to section 5, key simple ideas.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, the most prominent idea repeated in this chapter is the strict adherence to the divine pattern. Early on, God says, "Make this tabernacle and all its furnishings exactly like the pattern I will show you." And then again, at the very end of the chapter, when talking about the lampstand, he repeats, "See that you make them according to the pattern shown you on the mountain." There is zero creative license for Moses here. The blueprint is fixed, literal, and has to be followed to the absolute letter.
Finally, section 6, practical life lessons and a quick recap. We've definitely covered a lot of ground on this explainer today. We saw God ask for materials, and we walked step by step through the incredibly precise construction of the ark, the table, and the lampstand. So what practical stuff can we take away from this very literal text today? Well, first, there's the importance of giving with a willing heart. Notice how the grandest, most holy project started not with a demand or a tax, but with an invitation for people to give only what their hearts prompted them to. It shows us that true contribution comes from willingness, not obligation. Second, there's the immense value of following details closely. The sheer specificity here, the exact measurements, the required materials, the intricate designs, it really shows us that sometimes paying strict attention to the details of our own responsibilities is exactly what is required to build something truly meaningful and lasting in our lives. Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.